Now, Sant Pao also made this comment that I think we should address, because I would say there were Catholics and Protestants that supported the Nazis and Italian and Croatian fascists. Totally, there were. Were they correct in doing so? No. Were there also atheists that supported the Nazis and Italian and Croatian fascists? Yes. So does that mean atheism is wrong, like Catholics and Protestants are wrong in this statement?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where lumping everybody together in a group gets you into a problem where you're generalizing, and that's probably not a great idea to do. And that's why we're going through this conversation about different types of atheists and stuff to begin with.
Well, just as atheists, and I see this a lot, atheists do not like it when you lump them in as all atheists are angry, hostile atheists and so forth. And rightfully so, because they're not all that way. As we said, that's part of the point of this live stream, is to explain that there are different kinds of atheists. But in the same way, Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox adherents, all of them do not like saying they're all hypocrites and whatever. So it's very important that we examine individual claims. Like, for example, did the Protestants support the Nazis? Well, the Lutheran Church sure got a nice free ride during Nazism, but not all Lutherans supported that, and some paid with their lives and actually were executed. Some of the Lutherans were executed because they stood up against Hitler. Same with the Catholics. One of the best, most successful aces, fighter pilots for the Luftwaffe in World War II, was actually executed. He was a Catholic, and he stood up against the Nazis. And he was, we don't know exactly how he was executed, but it looks like he was taken up for one last plane ride and shoved out the door at a fairly high altitude. So what we have to look at is this really what Jesus taught? So when you're talking about theism, you can't have a Christian, whether they're Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, anybody who identifies as a Christian, they cannot be a Christian. They can call themselves one, but they're contradicting themselves if they also hate their brother. They hate their neighbor. That's just not on, and the Bible makes that very clear. Whereas an atheist,
and that's not hate your real brother or hate your neighbor that agrees with everything you believe in.
Next door. Jesus told a parable where he used the Samaritan. Now, Samaritan was a different ethnic group, and there was a lot of hostility of the Jews against the Samaritans and the Samaritans against the Jews. So we picked them to illustrate who is your neighbor. It's the person from the other, included in your neighbor is the person from a different ethnic group that hates you, and you might hate them. You need to rethink that. That's the person you need to love as you love your own self. And he used them, plus everybody else who you might find more agreeable. So basically, if they're a human being and they're alive, even if they're not alive, I think it's still wrong to hate people who have died. So if they're a human being that has ever lived, your job is to love them as you would love yourself. That's your job. That takes divine intervention, because I would never claim to be able to do that on my own.